Gate array design. So let's see what is gate array design. Till now we have seen full custom design and standard cells based design. Okay, so in this gate array design, this is capable of giving us a fast prototyping, means we can produce chips in less number of days, and it ranks second after the FPGA. Okay, FPGA is the fastest one in terms of providing fast prototyping, and after that gate array design comes. So the typical turnaround time is are of a few days in the case of gate array design. Okay, it means that you can get a chip fabricated in a matter of few days when using gate array design approach. Okay, so look at this diagram. This describes the step that are involved in gate array design process. So basically it is a two-step manufacturing process. So in the first phase, what is done is this is generic standard marks. Generic or standard marks are used, and this results in an array of uncommitted transistors. Uncommitted transistors means those transistors which are not being used in any kind of circuit. Okay, they are independent and they are available for use. They are not part of any circuit. They are independent. Okay, so this results in an array of uncommitted transistors on each GA chip, GA gate array chip. Okay, I think this shows this one. The standard marks are used here, and this will result in uh, chips that will contain only transistors, and those transistors are uncommitted. Those transistors are independent. It means only transistors are fabricated till now. Okay, there is no existence of any kind of circuit or any kind of you know gates or modules on the chip. Okay. Okay, so the next step is to use this uh, gate array chip which contains uncommitted transistors, and form the required circuits or modules or subsystems on this chip. Okay, so these uncommitted chips can be stored for later customization, which is completed by defining the metal interconnects between the transistors of the array. Okay, and mind it, how do we form a circuit on a chip? Okay, okay, because this already contains the uncommitted transistors. Okay, and we have to use these transistors to form different kind of circuits like gates, logic gates, adders, multipliers, flip-flops. Okay, so how are they achieved? Basically, we know that all of these kind of circuits uh, are made up of transistors, and transistors are available here. Okay, so if we can connect those transistors in a certain way, we can get a certain kind of circuit. Okay, so it's a matter of connection, the connection between different transistors. Then how do we connect transistors? We connect transistors with the help of metal layers. Okay, metal layers acts as interconnecting wires between different transistors. Okay, and these wires will be responsible for carrying signal from one transistor to another transistor and so on. Okay, So the next step is to uh, fabricate, or is to make different metal layers on this chip, so that we will get a complete chip which contains some sort of functionality. Okay, so this metal layer definition is there, and with the help of some custom masks again. Okay, these chips which contain only transistors. Okay, on the top of it metal layers are inserted. Look at this. Suppose this black horizontal line is one metal layer. Okay, now this one black horizontal line, this is coming here. Okay, on the top of these transistors. Where are these transistors coming from? These transistors are coming from this, the first phase. Okay, so this represents the amalgamation of first and second phase. And after fabricating proper metal layers on the top of the transistors to form proper connections between these transistors, we get a complete functional chip which will exhibit some sort of function. Okay, and it also marks the completion of this step, the gate array design process. Okay, so basically these are two steps which are used in this gate array design approach to fabricate an IC. Okay. So construct a common base array of transistors, common base array of transistors. Okay, and personalize the chip by altering the metallization, metal and via masks that is placed on top of the transistors. So this point is actually explaining the thing that we have seen in the previous slide. Okay, so first step is to form an array of transistors, and then connect those transistors using some metal layer. Okay, that is the second step. Okay, and this metal layer is placed on the top of the transistors for interconnecting them. Now here there are two terms, one is metal and the other one is vias. Okay, metal layers, you understand, they are the interconnecting layers, interconnecting wires that will connect one transistor to other transistor, or one output to the next input. And vias are the connections between different metal layers. Okay, we can have different metal layers. Okay, it can be a single metal layer IC, it can be a multiple metal layer IC. Now in the case of multiple metal layer IC, where we have multiple layers of metals lying one on the other. Okay, then there arises a need when we want to connect one metal layer to different metal layers. Suppose this is one metal layer and this is second metal layer. Okay, and this is third metal layer, right? So in this case, which consists of 1, 2 and 3 metal layer IC, and these are connecting different components, different transistors, right? But if there is a need that comes that says that I want to connect, that it needs a connection between metal 3 layer and metal 1 layer, then how do we connect this metal 3 with metal 1? Okay, now where a small hole is pierced in the IC. Okay, and this is filled with some metal substance, and this forms a connection between this metal layer and this metal layer. Okay, so this type of connection which connects the different metal layers, they are called as uh, vias, right? Okay, so This figure this figure shows a corner, just a corner part, not the complete part. Corner of gate array chip, which contains bonding pads on its left and bottom edges, bonding pads, then diodes for I/O protection, NMOS transistors and PMOS transistors for the chip output driver circuits adjacent to bonding pads, then arrays of NMOS and transistors and PMOS transistors, underpass wire segments, and power and ground buses along with contact windows. So it contains many things, right? So let's see one by one. So this is the corner part, like coming here and going like this. It contains bonding pads on its left and bottom edges. I think these small squares are the bonding pads. Okay, this one, then this one, then diodes for I/O protection. Where are the diodes? I think these are the diodes. This one, this one, this one. I like that. NMOS transistors and PMOS transistors for chip output driver circuits adjacent to bonding pads. Adjacent to bonding pads. So where are these transistors? Can we locate them? Adjacent to bonding pads. Adjacent to bonding pads. These are diodes. These maybe the NMOS and PMOS transistors, uh, and then array of NMOS transistors and PMOS transistors. Okay, look at this. These are NFETs and PFETs. So these are the array of NMOS and PMOS transistors, right? And they will be used for forming different circuits by using metallic interconnects. Underpass wire segments, so these are underpass wire segments, and power and ground buses. Where is the ground bus? This VSS. Okay, this is the ground bus, and this is the power bus. So it needs a supply, power supply, and one ground supply. Okay. So basically, when you will look at different kinds of layouts of different ICs, then you will be able to locate these different components easily. Now, since this is the first time, it might be a bit difficult for you, but not worry. Okay, so this one, a particular subclass of a gate array is known as a sea of gates chip. So there is a concept of this sea of gates. This is considered as a subclass of gate array, VLSI design methodology. So what happens here is the entire chip surface is covered with uncommitted transistors, uncommitted NMOS and PMOS transistors. As in the gate array case, the neighboring transistors can be customized using a metal mask to form basic logic gates, right? Again, metal masks are used everywhere for forming connections between different transistors. So here also metal masks uh, are used for fabricating metal interconnections on the top of these uncommitted transistors. The difference is here is that it contains only since the name is sea of gates. Okay, so it contains only these uncommitted transistors. It does not have any space left for forming the routing channels or interconnections between different components. So look at this space, look at this diagram. So this typical platform of a sea of gates SOG chip, it contains only transistors, this one, this one, this one, this one, and there is no space between these uncommitted transistors. Okay, these are still not used, these are uncommitted, but there is no space left between these transistors. All the space of IC is only consumed by the transistors, right? And this is the top VDD, the power supply rail, and this is again uh, sorry, this is again the VDD power supply rail, and this one is VSS, okay, the ground rail. Okay, so this portion is, the grace portion is for the PMOS area, the PMOS, and this white rectangle area will represents the NMOS area, NMOS and NMOS. Okay, and similarly this one NMOS, and this grayish area is PMOS. Okay, so when you connect one PMOS with one NMOS, we get an inverter, one CMOS inverter. But this will depend on what is the connection required, whether we want an inverter or an AND gate or XOR gate or any other kind of circuits. Okay, so this shows a comparison. This shows a comparison between the channeled gate array versus the sea of gates design. Okay, now the sea of gates is also called as a channelless gate array design. Okay, or simple channelless design. Uh, so this one is the only difference that appears between this channel gate array and channelless gate array is that there are some space left between the the array of uncommitted transistors. Okay, so this these ones are representing the array of uncommitted transistors here. Okay, these ones, and similarly and these ones. Okay, and this space, the white space between these line of array of uncommitted transistors represents the uh, area that is left for routing different transistors. Routing means require the interconnections required different transistors. So those interconnecting wires will also consume some sort of space. Some space is required. Okay, and hence these space are left for to be used by those interconnecting wires. Okay, but here in this case, no any space is left or is visible in this case of channelless gate array design. Okay, so the question that comes in the mind is that then how the interconnecting routing channels are, where are they lying, how are they adjusted in this chip? Okay, now for interconnecting different transistors here, since this area gives us only transistors, so only transistors are used itself for connecting different types of transistors, or transistors are used for forming the interconnecting wires between different circuits. Okay, now here metal lines may be used for connecting different transistors, but here since there is no space left for those metal lines, so only transistors are available, so and hence those transistors are used as a medium to carry signal from one part of the circuit to other part of the circuits. Okay, so the purpose of channel, uh, uh, the difference is, you got the difference right here. The interconnection will be done by using the transistors itself, right? Because this this gives us only transistors and nothing else. No space is left for forming interconnecting wires. So what is the option here? The only option present here is that we can use those uncommitted transistors to uh, act as interconnecting layers between different circuits on this chip, right? Okay, and hence it is also called as channel-less gate array design, or simply C of gate design, or C of gates VLSI design. Okay, so here routing problem is simpler because space are specific fixed spaces are provided for fabricating those routings. Okay, and okay with only one metal layer. Now mind it that we can have a single metal layer IC, we can have multiple metal layers. Nowadays it is a very common practice to fabricate, to have an IC with multiple metal layers. Okay. This one, flexibility in channel definition, position and width over the cell routing, and this one will give us a higher packing density, right? Okay, this is compatible with RAM, and it supports variable height cells and macro cells. Okay, so next we will start with the FPGA VLSI design style, that is also called as a field programmable gate array design. Yes, there is one point that as I told that in the case of C of gates, uh, the transistors are used for connecting purpose, right? Yeah, the transistors are used for connecting different cells, but it doesn't mean that we will not use the metal interconnects for connecting different transistors. Okay, the metals are still used for connecting different transistors, and some of the uncommitted transistors are also used for connecting different cells on this IC, on the IC, right? So it uses both the metal interconnections, and it also uses the some of the uncommitted transistors also for connecting different cells on the transistors, right? So it's like this. And doesn't you don't think that we don't use metal layers in the case of uh, channel-less SOG designs? No. Okay. So now with this, the gate array chip, the gate array design method is VLSI design is over, and then we will start with the field programmable gate array. Okay, the topic is FPGA, or field programmable gate arrays, right? If I think in the fourth semester you have done a lab on simulation, okay, or SDL, simulation 2 lab, if you remember. And then what you did there, you wrote Verilog codes for different types of circuits, and then using some tool, like in the lab we have used, I think, Xilinx Vivado tool. Okay, and then Xilinx Vivado tool, by using Xilinx Vivado tool, you try to synthesize the particular program. Okay, and you verified that whether the functionality is uh, proper or not. This much you have done. Okay, now that particular tool, the Xilinx Vivado, is a FPGA tool. Okay, it means that it is used for configuring FPGA chips. So what is an FPGA, like FPGA board? Okay, like I had said that we have, suppose in our lab, basis 3. Okay, basis 3 FPGA boards, basis 3 FPGA boards. Okay, and you can relate it to like an Arduino board. Okay, like an Arduino board contains one microcontroller. Similarly, basis 3 board will contain one FPGA chip. Okay, and whatever circuit you have designed in the Vivado tool, you can just dump that circuit on the Basis 3 board, and you can check the functionality by using the switches and LEDs present on the Basis 3 board. Okay, so this is the whole process of designing a circuit or realizing a hardware using FPGA flow in very short, right? Now, so keeping these things in mind, let us see what does FPGA will say design style tells about. So in this case we have ready-made fabricated FPGA chips, okay, that contain thousands or even more of logic gates with programmable interconnects, are available to users for their custom hardware programming to realize desired functionality, right? So we are having FPGA chips that are already available to us. Like in this case we are having Basis 3 board, and this board contains the FPGA chip, right? And these chips may have thousands of logic gates inbuilt, and these logic gates will be used to realize your particular function, maybe your half adder, maybe your full adder, maybe your flip-flop, maybe your multiplier, right? So ultimately, when you are dumping a circuit or Verilog code onto a hardware, you need actual hardwares, you need actual logic gates, right? So where are those logic gates present? They are present on in the FPGA chip, okay? And they are the boards, the chips are containing programmable interconnects, means because for every different circuit you will have to connect the logic gates in a different way. So, and hence the connections or the interconnects that are present in the FPGA chip should be programmable in nature, so that it can be programmed every time you dump a different circuit on the board, right? And they are available to users for their custom hardware programming to realize their desired functionality, okay? And this design style is very fast, is one of the fastest. It is the fastest, I think. It is the fastest among full custom standard cell gate array and this FPGA VLSI design methodology, okay? So this design style provides a means for fast prototyping and also for cost effective chip design, especially for low volume applications, okay? So if you have a circuit, if you know that how to write a circuit in a Verilog code, then you can actually realize the hardware in a matter of few minutes. You can realize the hardware in a matter of 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even 5 minutes, okay? So if the circuit is a bit complex, it may take some few hours, but still you're realizing a big circuit. You can realize a big circuit in a matter of few hours, okay? Then what do you want more, okay? So this is one of the fastest prototyping method, and is also cost effective for low volume applications, okay? So the applications where you know that as a designer, you know that the number of chips that are to be produced are low in number. You don't want the chips to be produced in millions of numbers, okay? It will be just like in few tens or few hundreds, or let's say even few thousands, okay? So for such low volume productions, this FPGA kind of VLSI design is pretty much suited. So what is there inside this FPGA chip architecture? A typical field programmable gate array chip consists of I/O buffers, an array of configurable logic blocks, CLBs, and programmable interconnect structures, okay? So look at this architecture. This is the architecture of Xilinx FPGA, okay? This is the architecture of Xilinx FPGA chip architecture, okay? And it consists of I/O buffers, okay? These are that are present on the periphery of the chips. They are the input output buffers, IO buffers, IO blocks. Okay, they are used for connecting and taking the signal inside the chip and taking out the signal from the chip to the outside world. And it contains an array of configurable logic blocks. Okay, so these squares are the actual CLBs, configurable logic blocks. The name suggests something configurable. So these are configurable or programmable in nature. But what programmable? These are configurable logic blocks. Logic means it will contain some sort of gates. Okay, gates and flip-flops, multiplexers, right? Because in turn all multiplexers, all flip-flops are made up of some sort of gates. So we can say that these CLBs will contain some number of gates which will be programmable in nature. Okay, and programmable interconnect. The interconnections, like look at these, the vertical lines and the horizontal lines. These are the interconnects that will be used for connecting these different CLBs. Okay, because without connecting these different CLBs, you cannot realize a function, you cannot realize a circuit on hardware. Okay, so somehow these routing channel, these are called as horizontal routing channel, and these are the vertical routing channel. Okay, so somehow these routing channel or interconnect structures have to be programmable in nature, so that you can use it and you can connect it to any CLB desired by your circuit. Okay, so this one is the internal structure of a CLB. Look at this. CLBs, so one CLB will contain this much amount of circuit. Okay, I think this is for this one, XC4000 family of FPGAs. XC4000 family of FPGAs, this one. So for this, the one CLB will contain like 1 2 3 4 input logic function, again 4 input logic function. Okay, this is 3 input logic function. Then these are flip-flops. Okay, 2 flip-flops. Then there are multiplexers. Then there are some multiplexers. Then some inverters, and these are the inputs. These are inputs that will be fed into the circuit, into the CLB. Okay, and then there is provision for one clock signal also. Okay, and these are also the control signals which are used for controlling various blocks within the CLB. Okay, so one particular CLB contains this much amount of hardware, right? So each CLB contains two independent 4 input combinational function generator, two independent 4 input. This is the first one, this is the second one. Okay, a clock signal terminal. This is the clock signal terminal. User programmable multiplexers. So these are the multiplexers, user programmable multiplexers. Okay, and two flip-flops. These are the flip-flops. These are the flip-flops. Okay, so this much hardware will be present inside one CLB, and there are like thousands of CLB present in a VLSI, in a FPGA chip. Okay, so the typical FPGA chips can support system clock frequencies between 50 and 100 megahertz. Okay, you can have a circuit running at these speeds. Now we have, I think, more advanced FPGA chips that can support even higher speed of clock signal. Okay, the largest advantage of FPGA design is very short turnaround time. Like I said, if you know the programmable, you know the coding in Verilog or VHDL, so you can have your hardware realization in a matter of few minutes, in a matter of few hours. Okay, even if you don't know this Verilog or VHDL code, you can still realize the hardware on a FPGA chip by using other programming languages like C or MATLAB or even Python. Okay, so there are converters which will convert those languages, those software languages, into the corresponding hardware language like Verilog or VHDL, and then you can implement that code on the chips by using the proper FPGA tool like Xilinx Vivado or Xilinx ISC. Okay, so the typical price of FPGA chips is usually higher than other alternatives. Okay, because the price of one basis 3 board is around 15,000. Okay, so suppose if you are dumping one hardware on a basis 3 board, okay, and you want it to use in some sort of application, in some sort of big system design, then that particular board will cost you just 15,000. Okay, so and if your circuit is small, then you may feel that it is a bit costly affair to realize the hardware function in 15,000 rupees. Okay, so if your circuit is sufficiently high, sufficiently complex, then that can occupy most of the CLBs present on these VLSI these FPGA chips. Then you may feel somewhat satisfied that okay, my circuit is a bit complex, and it will occupy most of the CLBs on these FPGA chips. So okay, we can go with this 15,000 this basis 3 board, right? So the price is a bit high than other alternatives like gate array or standard cells based design, but for small volume production of ASIC chips, okay, and for very fast prototyping, when you want your product to be produced in a very little amount of time, then this is the right choice. Okay, FPGA offers a valuable option, right? Okay, so so we have seen what does a CLB, configurable logic block, contain, and then we had seen the structure of the architecture of this FPGA chip. Okay, so the architecture was like this: CLBs. Okay, CLBs. These CLBs are distributed evenly on this in the Xilinx FPGA chip. Okay, and they are surrounded by these routing channels, these interconnections. Okay, and then how does the programmability of these interconnections ensured? Okay, so the programmability of these interconnections are ensured by using these PSM, something called as PSM. They are called as switch matrices. Okay, they are configurable in nature, and so look at this. Okay, suppose these are vertical interconnection lines and these are horizontal interconnection lines. Horizontal, these are vertical. Okay, so let's say I want to connect this vertical line with this horizontal line. Okay, and this is the meeting point. Okay, now you can see that at every meeting point of horizontal and vertical line you have a dot here. Okay, a dot here, a dot here. Okay, so what are present at these dots, right? So each of these dots is, when you see in large fashion, you will see that there are 6 pass transistors per switch matrix interconnect point. Okay, so this is 1 2 3 4, this is 5, this is 6th. Okay, so there are 6 pass transistors. So actually there, like, each of these is having one pass transistor present between this and this node. Okay, one pass transistor present between this and this node, one pass transistor present between this and this node, one pass transistor present between this and this node, and one in between this and this node. Okay, so suppose if you want to connect this line with this line, okay, so in that case we want to use this particular line. So this particular this particular pass transistor will be switched on. Okay, and these should be switched off. the others should be switched off, so that there exists a connection between this line and this line only. Okay, and other lines are not connected, they are just not conducting, right? Okay, so let's say I want to connect this line with this line. Okay, so in this case I would like to use this particular pass transistor. Okay, so this particular pass transistor will be switched on so that it forms a conducting path between this and this line interconnection. Okay, and rest of the pass transistors should be switched off, or they will be cut off simply, so that there does not exist any connection between this line and other lines. Okay, so in this case this line gets connected with this line like this. So in this fashion you can connect any of these two lines among these four interconnects. So this is how the programmability of each of these switch matrix interconnect point is ensured. Okay, and the collection of these interconnect points will be called as a switch matrix, right? So any of these vertical routings can be connected off and to any of these horizontal routing by using this concept, by extending this concept further, right? Okay, so this is what is explained here. So this was about FPGA. So we started with this and the architecture of FPGA. Then the main part was the heart was the configurable logic blocks. Okay, then the structure of configurable logic block or structure of a CLB, then the programmability of the interconnections, how are they achieved. Okay, so now we come to the comparison of various design styles that we have studied till now. So let's say we have seen full custom, standard cell based, gate array and FPGA, right? So in terms of area, full custom is like will give you the smallest area because it is full custom. You have the independency, you have the choice of designing each and every component from the scratch. Okay, so you can very well optimize any of the component required. And the standard cell based design, because it uses some sort of library, so the components that are present in the library, you are bound to use those components. We are bound to use those components. Okay, we cannot change the performance of those components. So whatever optimization, whatever performance those components provide us, we have to use those things. Okay, so it will provide small to moderate area performance. Then gate array will give us a moderate, and FPGA will give a large area, right? Performance wise, again this is full custom, will give you the highest performance. Okay, standard cell based design, high to moderate, gate array moderate, and FPGA low performance, right? Fabrication layers in full custom, all fabrication layers. Again in standard cell based design, all fabrication layers. In gate array, the uncommitted transistors were used by using metal layers. Remember, metal layers are used. And in FPGA there is no fabrication required. We have already the hardware present. The hardware is present already on the chip in the board. Okay, so none. There is no requirement of any kind of fabrication layer, or no fabrication is required, right? Design time is the highest design time. This will take the longest amount of time to design one chip using full custom VLSI design method. In the standard cell based method, it will take high to moderate amount of time. Gate array will take somewhat moderate, and the FPGA will give you the lowest prototyping time. Okay, the lowest smallest time to realize a hardware. Okay, so this is the advantage of FPGA. If you want to realize the hardware quickly, then you can go for FPGA. Okay, but if you want to realize a chip with the highest amount of performance, okay, so then in that case you can go with the full custom or standard cell based design, because nowadays this standard cell based design is the most popular method, right? Because no one wants to design the chip from scratch. Okay, so let's say that we have a library that contains some optimized components, and we will pick up those components and use our and will build our circuit. Okay, so the standard cell based design is the most popular, most prevalent VLSI design style nowadays. Okay, and FPGAs are suitable for low volume productions where suppose you are an independent designer and you are an enthusiast. Okay, or you're designing a circuit for some which requires just few numbers of fabrication, which requires just few numbers to be produced. Okay, so in that case you can go with FPGA, right? Okay, now here there is one comparison given and one among these four styles along with PLD, although PLD is not there in your syllabus, but still it is given here. Cell size, do you remember what is a cell? Huh? In full custom the cell size is variable. Okay, it is on the designer's hand. Standard cell based design, since because it is using, we are using a library here, so we cannot change the size of one cell. Now you got the idea of one cell. One cell is a component. Okay, one cell may be a component that will be used for building the bigger circuit. Okay, in gate array, remember gate array used uncommitted transistors, so you have those uncommitted transistors, you cannot change the size of those uncommitted transistors, right? In FPGA also the hardware is already present, so it's fixed. In PLD also it is fixed. Okay, so most of the things between FPGA and PLD will be similar because they are coming from the same history flow. Okay, so most of the things they will share with each other. And FPGA has evolved somewhat, has evolved to be a more popular option than PLD with some reasons, but this is coming from this line also. Earlier PLDs were used, now PLDs have grown into FPGAs, right? But still some at some places PLDs are still used. So cell type, again variable in full custom, variable in standard cell based design. There are various types of cell there are various types of cells available, there are various types of components available in standard cell based design library. Okay, in gate array you have again those fixed uncommitted transistors, so the type is not available. In FPGA it is programmable, the hardware is there, you can program those hardware. Okay, PLD again programmable. Cell placement, again full custom, it's variable, you can place your cell, you can place your component anywhere on the IC as you desire. In standard cell based design, in row, this is designed, this is placed along rows. Okay, along the rows, right? In gate array this is again fixed. In FPGA this is fixed, you cannot change the position of the cells present in FPGA chip ICs. In PLD it is again fixed. The interconnections or the wires, right? So in full custom again variable, so look at these are all variable here in full custom, so this gives us a full independency to design the chip using full custom. But what is the problem here? That it takes a huge amount of time and money to realize ICs using full custom VLSI design style. Okay, in standard cell based design interconnection is variable. Okay, gate array variable, you can connect any transistor to any other transistor. In FPGA the interconnects are programmable, they exist but they can be programmed. Okay, in PLD they are programmable. So this will give you a clear-cut idea about when to go for which kind of VLSI design style, right? And what are their strength and what are their weaknesses. So you cannot find all the things in one single design flow, because every method has got its certain number of advantages and disadvantages. So based upon the type of application, a particular design style is used, and then the chip is realized. Okay. Then look at this, some extra information I have tried to sorry, what is this? Yeah, some extra information I have tried to give here. So there are some terms that are prevalent in the VLSI industry. So like there are some EDA vendors. So they are the provider of various tools. Okay. So we have Synopsys, Cadence, Mentor Graphics, Magma. So they will provide you the tools with which you can design the VLSI chip, right? Xilinx also we can mention here that Xilinx provide its EDA tool such as Xilinx Vivado that can be used for fabricating uh, that can be used for realizing FPGA chips. Then there are some chip manufacturers. Okay, they have their own process, product, and fabrication plants, but may or may not have their own tools. Okay, so these were the tool providers, and these are the mm, companies that may have their products, may have their fabrication plants, but they might use the tools from different EDA vendors. Okay, so some of the examples are like Intel, AMD, Texas Instruments, IBM. Then there are some fabless semiconductor companies. So they have their own hardware products. Okay, they have their products, but no fabrication plants. They cannot fabricate because they don't own any fabrication plant. So what do they use? They may or may not have their own third-party EDA tools, and if they have their own flow tools, they are called to have customer-owned tool model. Okay, so they may have or they may not have the EDA tools with them. Okay, in case they don't have, they will use the EDA tools provided by the EDA vendors, Synopsys, Cadence, Mentor Graphics, or so. Okay, and and they also don't own the fabrication. Okay, but here in the case of chip manufacturers, they had the fabrication plants, but here they don't have any fabrication plant. So but they are having their own hardware products. Okay, some examples are Broadcom, Marvell. Then Nvidia can also be categorized as a fabless semiconductor company. Then there are some ASIC vendors. They have the chip design methodology, process, and fabrication plants. Okay, but no hardware products. So what is their business? They will cater to fabless semiconductor companies. Okay, they don't produce products. They might have they have the fabrication plants, and they will cater to these fabless semiconductor companies. Some examples are Texas Instruments, IBM. Okay, so one company can come under different uh, types of VLSI service providers. So like suppose here IBM is coming under ASIC vendor, it's also coming under chip manufacturers. Okay, then there are some fabrication plants which deliver process and manufacturing ability, which only manufactures the IC. Their business is to manufacture the VLSI chips. Okay, so there is one very popular, TSMC. This is Taiwan Semiconductor Corporation. Then there are TI, UMC, IBM, Global Foundries. Okay, so these are the fabrication plants that actually fabricate the ICs for different companies. Then there are some IP providers. IP is for intellectual property. Okay, so suppose you design a particular circuit that's unique and you want to sell this in the market. Okay, so if you somehow get a patent on that, okay, then it means that you own that, you are the owner of that particular product, you are the owner of that particular let's say design, you are the owner of that particular design methodology, whatever you have proposed. Okay, and no one else can use that particular design without your consent. Okay, so in that case you will be called as the owner of that particular IP. Okay, and that product will be called as an IP, intellectual property. Okay, so they provide custom blocks doing specific functions, example memory, clock generators, One very good, one most famous example is ARM. Like ARM are providing ARM processors architecture, but they don't have any, they don't produce it in hardware. They don't have the manufacturing capability. They don't produce it in the actual hardware. They just give out the uh, architecture. Okay, they just sell this architecture to different companies, and those companies when buy they buy the architecture from the ARM, and then they use those architectures in their circuits. Okay, so like ARM Cortex, yeah, ARM Cortex microprocessors, microcontrollers, those things. Okay, so ARM will design those microcontroller architectures and will sell those microcontroller architectures to different other companies. Okay, and this is their business. They will design and sell. They will design and sell. Okay, so these are the different types of companies that you will find in VLSI industry. Okay, uh, now next we will start with the fabrication technology. Okay, how is a chip actually fabricated in a fabrication plant? So we will see these steps.